Welcome to How I AI, the podcast featuring real people, real stories, and real AI in action. I'm Brooke Gramer, your host and guide on this journey into the real-world impact of artificial intelligence. For over 15 years, I've worked in creative marketing, events, and business strategy, wearing all the hats. I know the struggle of trying to scale and manage all things without burning out. But here's the game changer, AI. This isn't just a podcast. How I AI is a community, a space where curious minds like you come together, share ideas, and I'll also bring exclusive discounts and insider resources because AI isn't just a trend, it's a shift. And the sooner we embrace it, the more freedom, creativity, and opportunities will unlock. How I AI is brought to you in partnership with the Collective AI, a space designed to accelerate your learning and AI adoption. I joined the Collective and it's completely catapulted my learning, expanded my network, and showed me what's possible with AI. Whether you're just starting out, seeking community, or want done-for-you solutions, the Collective gives you the resources to grow your business with AI. So stay tuned to learn more at the end of this episode, or check my show notes for my exclusive invite link. Hi, everyone. More and more of you have been reaching out, wanting to share your stories, how you're using AI, what you're experimenting with, and what you're building. And honestly, I love it. This is what How I AI is really about. Not just big moments or big names, but the ripple effect. It's about highlighting the quiet builders, the innovators in unexpected spaces, and amplifying each other as we grow together in this new era of possibility. So today we're diving into a Power Series episode. These are going to be shorter conversations with incredible guests from varying industries, showing us how AI is being adapted in creative, intentional, and sometimes really unexpected ways. All right, let's dive into today's Power Series episode. For my next guest, I'm joined by Walker Posey, who is bringing thoughtful innovation to one of the oldest and most emotionally sensitive industries in the world. Whether you've ever thought about the role of AI in end-of-life services or not, this next interview might surprise you. Today's guest is Walker Posey. He's a fourth-generation funeral director using creativity, technology, and compassionate leadership to modernize one of the oldest industries on Earth. Welcome, Walker. I'm so happy to have you on How I AI today.
Thanks, Brooke. It's great to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
I'm so excited to dive into everything that you're doing today in regards to AI and technology. But first, can we share with the listeners today, expand a bit more on yourself and your background?
Sure. Like you said, I'm a fourth generation funeral home owner. My great grandfather started our business in 1879, so we go back a long way. I came back about 20 years ago with my family and took over and bought the business about 10 years ago. And I can tell you that the industry that my great grandfather was in is vastly different than what I'm in today. But we really enjoy serving families in our community and making big differences in their lives. And over the last 20 years, I've worked really hard to use technology to better serve those families and to create more meaningful and more valuable experiences for them.
Beautiful. I'm sure that this is one of those industries that really needs better tech. And I'd love to first dive into how you support yourself using tools like technology and artificial intelligence. What really sparked your interest to get into streamlining, automating, and using technology, specifically in your line of work, which has been around for so long?
It has been around forever. And I'll tell you, for us, it's not easy to find people who want to be in our business, right? So as time has gone on, technology's allowed us to use a little bit of automation in the back of the house to make some things easier for us to do more with less people. Okay. But my interest in technology and AI has been longstanding. When I first came into the business, this is honestly like pre-websites. This is a while ago. As we began to create, for example, we created the first memorial page a digital memorial page. And so all of our families, and now most funeral homes in America, when you have a death, there's a digital memorial page to go to where that person's memory can kind of live on forever. We know it's awkward on social when someone passes away and their Facebook page is there, or their Instagram's there forever and ever. What do you do? This is a place where you could go and tell stories, share memories. Now you can watch the live stream of the service. But this was done originally as a hope to just be one more way to help folks have a place to go to remember and to serve their grieving and healing process. So that started a long time ago. And since that time, we've evolved into not just live streaming and memorial pages, but into actually using AI in our software for running our business and trying to make a useful tool for efficiency and to make the process better for families.
Could you share about how you're using automation systems, whether it comes to training your staff or hiring? Are there any specific platforms or tools that you're specifically using? I know a lot of people gravitate towards ChatGPT, but every industry is unique, especially when you're in a realm where relationships really matter. And this is like very sensitive and emotional time for a lot of people. So I'm curious how exactly you're adapting and automating with AI, but still keeping that emotion and that relationship at the forefront.
You're 100% correct. Human emotion and connection are at the core of what we do. And as good as technology can be, people need us to be there for them, like in person, the real us, and to connect. Early on, we were using ChatGPT for like obituary writing, let's say. And now all the management softwares in our business have an AI obituary writing tool. However, if you don't put the right information in or get to know the family enough to know what to put in, you have a very generic piece. I was listening to your last show. I think Tiana was on talking about using emails with ChatGPT and how they can be really impersonal or whatever. The same is true for obituary writing and other tools that we use. Our job is to get to know the family and to try to create an experience that's really meaningful for them as a point of reference to deal with their grief. And as we have that conversation about their life and what they're doing, we can take that data, put it into the tools like ChatGPT or the AI obit writer. It can help us with the phrasing, but it's really on us to gather the information. We're still going to be the main information gatherer. And also, we're in a relationship business. It's very important that when I'm writing an obituary, which personally, I use ChatGPT very little in my obituary writing. I think I've done it for so long that I have a nuance that I'm with. But my younger directors who may have a hard time phrasing certain things could use it quite a bit. But having the right data is important. But there's a lot of other tools that we're using besides just the obituary writer. For example, we have a software called Afterward that is our back of the house management software. And they've created an AI assistant called Grace that we can talk to and ask questions. For example, we could say, tell me any other relatives that I've served in this family who are related to John Smith. And it'll bring up, oh, you served his grandfather, you buried his grandmother, his sister. That helps us then have more data and information and understanding of, okay, this is what we did for these family members. This is their religious tradition. This is so when they come in, we're more equipped to like not just be an order taker, but actually be prepared to understand their relationship and history. In our business, especially, we've been there since 1879. I can't remember everyone in the world we've ever served, but you feel like a short-tail relative because you're walking them through a very difficult emotional time. So it's helpful to have some reminders and things that can prompt those relationships and you can connect the dots. So that can be very helpful use of automation, I think.
It reminds me of those tools like Ancestry.com. And those at the end of the day are dealing with algorithms and AI. And that's really nice that you're able to lean in it and you've found solutions and software specifically to you that are working. Could you maybe share some of the benefits that you're seeing? So when you create these digital memorials and these live streams and those video tributes, do you feel like this saves a lot of time or it's more efficient?
Absolutely. It does those things, and I'll come back to them. But the biggest benefit it has is it gives the family a place to go to permanently remember their loved one. So we live in a very mobile society. Our society is totally different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And we're seeing that. So as the trend towards more people being cremated than buried has risen, one driving factor of that is that people don't live in the same place they grew up. And so a lot of times families go, well, gosh, we've lived in 5 cities. I don't know that I want to pick a plot of land to be buried in permanently. So maybe if I don't do that, I can take the urn with me, or whatever the case may be. But having a place online to go, or a digital place to feel the community's love for you is really important. It used to be when you had a death, your neighbors made food and brought it over, and people gathered at your house, and you had this whole support community. And so that digital space gives us a place to create a virtual community of care, so that your friends in one part of the country who aren't your neighbors but are still your close friends can share in that and can participate. Part of grief and healing is feeling that community support, which comes through interaction. And the digital space gives us a chance to widen that net and not just see your local friends from your current community, but it encapsulates your entire life and all those relationships. So that's really important. From a time-saving standpoint, it's huge. For us, when you have a family that's had a death, it takes us about 2 or 3 hours to initially meet with them and take the data we need for things like death certificate and information, and then to actually plan the service. And there's probably as many decisions with a funeral, planning a funeral, as there are with a wedding, which is hard to believe. Usually you plan your wedding over a year or something, or a couple of years. With the funeral service, usually we're planning it for a few days from now. And so using technology to help us just gather data, complete forms, all of these type of things helps us, because there really truly is a shortage of licensed funeral professionals in the U.S. And so, as we know, we have to do more with less people. So it helps us to be able to do that.
Have you felt like there's been any pushback or challenges when it comes to using technology and things as you've been modernizing the industry a bit with AI and these tools that you've been using?
I think the challenge has been with my directors who may be from a different generation to adapt and learn the value of those things. It's really important, though, to always be upfront that, hey, listen, our point here is to make this the most personal and most meaningful experience you can have with this family. So if I have someone who doesn't like to use a computer or a laptop in the conference, I say, don't do that. Write it down by hand. And then we take a picture of it and use OCR to get the data into our management software, let's say, which is really helpful, because as long as your handwriting's somewhat legible, they can take a picture and can populate the fields and can be in good shape. And so these tools have helped us streamline that and make the process efficient for the family.
That's nice. Have you played around with voice notes or audio notes, or even just recording and transcribing when it comes to taking down this data?
We have. It's funny. The next update we get from our management software will have the note feature on there in beta trying it. So it'd be really helpful for us to be able to dictate, or to just have it listen to the conversation and pick up on things. You're talking my dream here. This is the less typing I have to do, the better it will be. And the technology's there, clearly. Since our profession is pretty old, it took us a while to get vendors who understood the flow and our workflow to create in that space. But now there's so many technology vendors, and the technology business around funeral care is huge. You're seeing a lot of private equity get into that and buy and sell companies. But I think that the more players there are in the space, the better it is for us, because they tend to be a little more forward in their development process.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of my favorite questions to ask, is if you were able to wave a magic wand, so you know your personal pain points more than anyone in your repetitive process and work. So if you were to create a software or a solution, something using the help of AI, what would you create that would be a big benefit to your role?
So this is a back of the house solution, but it's very simple. I would create an interface where our management software, so that we input data into the system, can then speak to all the states for their death certificate process. This process is so antiquated and so difficult that we're having to enter data 2 and 3 times. So if you don't use any kind of technology, you're sitting there taking the data in one software, then you're transcribing it to the state software for the death certificate creation, and then to whatever else you're doing. So I would take a magic wand and have every state communicate with our software to be able to automatically and seamlessly get the death certificate filed and certified. That's a big deal. For the families we serve, that's a very important thing because they really can't do any business until they have a certified death certificate. And so it's a big time consumer for us. The other thing would be interesting, and this is maybe controversial, there are companies now, Funeral One's a great example of this. Funeral One's my personal tech supplier in our space, and I've been for 20 years giving them ideas and helping them work on things that could help us provide more value. They're actually working on the technology to have holograms present during services, which is pretty interesting. So you could actually have your grandfather give his own eulogy in his words. Maybe some families wouldn't like that. Maybe some would. But when you talk about what's being developed, there's some very forward-thinking pieces to help bring more personalization and more meaning to funeral services.
I think this is so interesting. And I had a recent conversation with someone that works in the brand avatar space, and she's spoken about these digital legacy tools that are coming out. And the only thing between a sci-fi futuristic movie and things coming to fruition is just time. And I can't recall the movie, and maybe I'll look it up and link it in the show notes, where people who are grieving their past loved ones, they're able to upload everything about them and still speak to them and grieve them when they've passed. And so what you're sharing about the hologram just sounds so interesting to me of where we're headed now that we have this technology and this ability to not only be emotionally supported, whether that's through an online therapy app, whether that's a real person or artificial intelligence behind it, but these really interesting technological creative advances when it comes to grieving. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts on that in this future that we move into and all of these new technologies that are going to be coming out specifically in your industry.
So I'll tell you, 15 years ago, we created the first virtual aftercare solution for families. It's called aftercare, and myself and Funeral One built this. It's a place on our website where you can go, and we actually, so long ago, we had a real grief therapist, Dr. Virginia Simpson. We met her in Palm Springs. We filmed for 3 days, 15 to 20-minute segments on different types of grief. And then she'd ask you, tell me what kind of death have you experienced? What kind of loss have you experienced? And you would select like death of the parent, child, whatever. And then she'd walk back up on the screen, and it's still on our website today. You can see it. And she would talk to you for 15 minutes or 20 minutes in your own home, just telling common things, feelings you may have, and different stories about how to deal with that. It's really helpful. I think, especially around grieving tools, this can be very important because many people don't want to go to a therapist, let's say, or they don't want to go to a grief group. We have in-person groups every day at our place, and they're busy, but there's some people who just go, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And to be able to interact, and if you're using a digital tool, you have to realize this is not the same as in-person therapy. You're not really speaking back to it at this point. I'm sure we could do that soon with AI. You have to understand what you're getting, but just getting information and knowledge in the privacy of your own home at 2:00 in the morning when maybe you wake up and can't sleep is a lot of benefit to that. And so we pioneered that a long time ago and are in the middle of revamping that now based on new technology.
Yeah, that's such an important point, is being able to have access and support no matter what time or circumstances you're in, and being able to receive those comforting videos that you worked with her on. I can imagine that's such a great advantage for someone when they're selecting who they're going to work with during such a sensitive time of their life. And I can imagine that you're going to be adopting AI on an even deeper level because, to your point, there's so much that goes into the planning of a funeral, just as much as a wedding, and all the little steps and things you have to remember. I just can imagine your conversation with me a year from now and how much you're going to be adapting AI on a deeper level. I'm excited just to see what's next for you. I'd love to just open the floor. What's one key takeaway you want to have listeners who are in the AI space?
I think for me, it's important to know that everything we do has to be designed with the family first, and the view of whatever we're doing has to bring healing and make the process better for those who are dealing with grief. That's the whole point. It's nice to make our jobs easier, to make it more seamless, but the real point is that the things we're developing have true value to the consumer, who's the family who's had a death. And I'm excited about the things that are to come, because I can really see how in the next couple of years, or hopefully before, we'll have even better tools and little things. Even currently now, selecting merchandise for a funeral is overwhelming. There's hundreds of casket options and hundreds of urns. So as AI can know who this family is and can look at what their buying habits are and can see what their likes and what colors they like, we scale those choices down and make it more simple and making it seamless and giving them more free time to spend with their family. They shouldn't be spending all this time just in planning an event. They need to be really feeling the support of their community. And that's the point of what we do as funeral directors, and that's the point of technology and funeral service.
Thank you for that. Such key points. I love just amplifying case studies and expanding individuals. I imagine your work is quite regional, but if you want to share how listeners can reach out to you, where you offer your services, what's the best way to contact?
Sure. Well, two things. I am a funeral director in South Carolina and Georgia, but today in the capacity of a spokesperson for the National Funeral Directors Association. So NFDA is the National Funeral Directors Association. You go to nfda.org. You can find a funeral home in your local area, and you could determine who would provide the best services. My personal site is Posey Cares. POSEYCARES.com. Happy to answer questions or just give folks advice on how they can select the proper funeral home for them and how they can be prepared when the time comes to sit in that seat to deal with it in the proper way.
Thank you, Walker, so much for sharing insight into a space a lot of us will come up against at one point in time throughout our lives. It was very interesting to hear how you're utilizing AI in such a unique way. And I appreciate your time, and I can't wait to share this episode with listeners.
Absolutely. And I think my final takeaway would just be, I hope the public knows that their stereotypical idea of what a funeral director is has changed. And there are many qualified professionals who really want to provide the highest level of care and provide the best experience they can. So they're in good hands.
Thank you so much, Walker.
Thank you.
My next guest features a grounded and refreshing perspective from the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm joined by Danielle Yu, a former senior advisor at TD Ameritrade who managed over $800 million in client assets before making a bold leap into the tech world. He's now the founder of FinMate AI, building custom AI agents for advisors and financial firms. But what sets Danielle apart is his human-first approach to tech. This one's packed with sharp insights, real-world use cases, and a grounded take for what's next in AI, financial services, and beyond. Enjoy. Danielle, thank you. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brooke.
Please, I would love to introduce yourself.
So my name is Daniel. I used to work for TD Ameritrade as a senior advisor for them, managed about 800 million client assets, and did that until the Schwab takeover ended up happening. I had been doing a master's program at Johns Hopkins using AI to do stock price prediction modeling. Thesis advisor happened to be a guy who works for our regulatory agency, FINRA, and let me know about the maintaining qualifications program that would let me partially leave the industry while keeping my licenses active. And so ended up going into tech. My financial advisory practice was mostly in the Silicon Valley area. I'd always been interfacing with folks in tech, and so was curious about that world and ended up jumping in. And started FinMate soon after, basically to fill some needs I thought that the financial advisory industry had.
Okay, cool. So tell me more about that first initial step into the tech space, because a lot of people are experiencing this moment in time where they're pivoting, and they're pivoting more into technology and integrating AI systems. So bring me back to that first moment where you were a big time financial advisor and you decided to make that pivot.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, post Schwab merger, I had a decision to make, right? Whether I wanted to stay in the industry or go try something else out. I've only ever been an advisor before that. And so I figured, hey, now's a pretty good time to see what else is out there. Again, most of my clients were either in the tech world or tech adjacent. And the question was always, I wonder what it's like to sit on that side of the table instead. And given my kind of technical training and background, I ended up joining another startup just to learn the ropes on how to be part of a startup. Did that for about a year and then moved on to start my own after that. Yeah, really had about a year of training under another startup.
That's awesome. I'm a firm believer in your environment and your network, right? And a lot of individuals, when they're first starting their career or wanting to shift industries or make a pivot, it's super important to be putting yourself in the right environment. And it sounds like you were in the right ecosystem to really just start soak in. So my next question for you is, before developing your own software solutions such as FinMate AI, what were you playing around with? What is your technology stack outside of the software that you created? I'd love to just get a behind the scenes look into what it is that you use day to day, because we're also individual.
Got it. Well, really the usage of AI came more with us developing out FinMate, the note-taking part of it. Back when I was at that previous startup and I would be talking to a number of vendors, I did notice that they were using an AI note taker even back then, right? In 2022, 21 timeframe. So when I left to start FinMate, originally we were actually doing a different app, Div Income, where basically we wanted to help the retail investor invest in income generating stocks, right? Because if you remember back then, the interest rate was near zero, right? And so bonds were not paying much out. There is plenty of tools out there for the growth oriented advisor in the robo space, but I felt like there was nothing really for the income advisor. And so that's what we're gearing up to build. And then as we were trying to expand that out, the interest rate environment completely changed. Rates skyrocketed, and dividend producing stock as an income play no longer made sense. And so when we were looking to pivot, and I was remembering back to those AI note takers at that previous firm, I wanted to take a look to see if I could make that more applicable to my previous industry as an advisor. And I quickly realized that a lot of the generic note takers were not specific enough to act as that seamless transition from advisor-client meeting to compliance required notes. And so this was back in the day of ChatGPT 2.0, and I'll let you remember like Ada, Da Vinci back in those days. And so that's where it got started. And that's when we started jumping into AI. And yeah, it's been a very crazy rapid ride since then.
Thank you for sharing. I'd love to just go back to what was it like adopting and restructuring your workflow? Was there any resistance when you first started integrating AI?
Yes, obviously. Financial advisory is a very traditional kind of environment. And so when we first launched FinMate, we were the first AI note taker for the advisor marketplace and just custom built for only that market. And so initially there was a lot of pushback, right? It's new, it's unregulated, people don't know. And so when we designed it out, we designed it to be as data minimalist as possible. So we don't read client CRM data. We auto delete everything from our system. We don't let anyone keep anything long-term on our side because we don't want to be considered books and records and fall under those regulations. And so we did our best to try to alleviate a lot of the technology security concerns. But I guess what I didn't realize was how quickly the industry would change, right? I think when people are seeing money, they end up putting aside their security concerns. And so it's been a very interesting shift to watch in the industry as there's been a wide spectrum of responses where some firms are still very careful with adopting AI tech. And I think some firms have gone way too quick in letting AI into all of their systems. So yeah, there's been a mix.
You bring up such a valid point about the industries that are slow to adapt are the ones that are most reliant on those relationship-based clients. Maybe we could chat a little bit more about that. How are you overcoming that? How are people trusting their money and their investments in robots, in technology, in bots?
Yeah. So when people think of AI and financial advisory investment, I think automatically people's minds go to, oh, the AI is investing for us. That hasn't really been the case. There's a couple of companies out there that are trying, but that really hasn't been the majority use case. The majority use case for AI in a slower, methodical industry is more in operational efficiencies, right? So paperwork, filing, data transference, that kind of thing. For investments, the closest thing I've seen so far being used more widely is using AI to do sentiment analysis, market research, right? We live in an environment where there's just a deluge of data and information always being created day by day. And so a human analyst just doesn't have the time to get the lay of the land daily, right? And so what I've seen people come up with is a AI that reads through the market news and then gives relevant updates to the analyst so that the analyst can then go back in and double check. But I'm not on that side of the AI. I am firmly on the side of operational efficiencies right now.
Yes, operational efficiency is the way to really adapt AI. And I'm seeing, and of course, you can speak more on this as well, is a lot of people finally getting into AI agents. And I know you've started to create or have already built a lot of custom AI agents for advisors. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think this is a problem that everyone in the AI space is going through right now. I guess a bit of background on the market conditions leading up to where we are in this current moment. If you remember back to Corona times, even before then, there's been a lot of funding sitting on the sidelines because venture capital and private equity just really didn't know where to put money into, right? There's nothing hot on the horizon that they really were trying. I think crypto had its moment for a little bit, and then that kind of, most of it ended up not working out long term. And there's been a lot of dry powder waiting to be deployed. Post-corona, again, that pressure kept mounting where no one really knew where to put money into. During corona, e-commerce and retail, e-retail really had its heyday because everyone's in their homes and basically just shopped with stimulus checks. But again, post everyone coming back into the real world, there's been a lot of cutbacks, right? You've seen a lot of tech companies that have hired a lot of people end up laying off those very same people 2 years later. And so the stage is set. Right. There's this new rising technology that everyone is excited about, and it has a lot of industry implications, AI. You have a bunch of people who are engineers entering, being unemployed because of all the layoffs. And so you have a large glut of talent, and you have all this money sitting on the sideline waiting to get deployed. And so all of a sudden, you have this very hot market where you have workers, you have funding, you have an opportunity. So everyone is jumping into this AI game, which is great for the consumer. Terrible for businesses at the end of the day, because if there's a hyper competition, there's less and less profit to be had. But unfortunately, because of all the venture capital and private equity dollars flowing in, there's a lot of companies out there with a lot of money and questionable futures, right? And a lot of the valuations, talking to some of the more established companies, 100 years old, kind of giants in the financial space, I've talked to a lot of their venture arm folks, and they're all not excited about the incredible valuations. That's really the private equity and venture capital markets that are jumping into it, not really the established players, right? Mm. Why is that? Well, the reason is there's no moat, right? AI has developed so quickly, there's no way to copyright or patent anything really in this space at the moment, right? And so you have all this talent, you have all this money, everyone's rushing to make product. And so now there's thousands of these products with no moat. And so everyone's copying everyone. And that's the current environment we're in. And so the question on everyone's minds is, how do we protect kind of our IP or our value proposition to clients when AI is moving so quickly that everything is getting obsolete and everything is getting copied by people with more money? And back to your question about personalization, that human element, the solution that I came to is we need to build personalized AI agents for firms, especially in the slower moving industries. Because ultimately, I've seen companies make these great platforms where you can build your own agentic AI. Unfortunately, most people in these historic industries don't have the technological know-how to even set it up properly. And so I think there's value in creating these custom AI agents for folks in this industry, because the biggest question that I'm getting right now from clients is, hey, Daniel, I know you know the industry. I know you know AI. There's 1,000 of these AI tools out there now. Tell me what I should want. So that's what we're trying to answer.
I think that's important when it comes to packaging and messaging and communication of what it is that your value prop is, and especially in the crowded market, which you said something that really stuck with me on our intro call. You said a blue ocean becomes a red ocean very quickly. And it's going to be really hard to differentiate or understand what it is that you need to be adapting and adding into your systems and your operations, your infrastructure. So my next question for you is to go a little bit more into what differentiates your business and how do you stand out in a copycatting environment?
Yeah, great question. I think this is the question on everyone's mind in light of no moat. Not every blue ocean becomes red ocean immediately, but when there is no moat, it goes red ocean very quickly, right? And I think the key differentiator is if you are just a simple technology platform product, you're going to have a hard time because you're going to have competitors that are slightly bigger, slightly smaller, right? All across the board attacking your business. So the only way to do it, I think, is on the service end of things, right? Again, building the relationship with your clients, understanding how they operate, not just on an industry level, but on their firm level, because everyone has a different tech stack at the end of the day. Everyone has different standard operating procedures. So if you can build an AI agent that works with that company internally, that's a hell of a lot more useful than a broad platform that doesn't really work. So that's our differentiation, is we take care of each client and build out a custom solution for them, understanding that they are not the most technical people. And so this needs to be as easy as possible to use. Giving them a gigantic configuration page where they're going to need to get a college degree in your software isn't really helping anyone. And so I think our differentiator is because we haven't fundraised and we're bootstrapped, we're able to take it a little slow. We're able to not need to go shoot for the moon and have these incredible, insane valuations, but really just take care of individual firms that come along our way.
That's great. I'd also love to touch on trends and where you see the industry, because it sounds like you're very effectively positioning yourself now. How long does that remain effective? And where do you see the next 6? Yeah, right? It's like something you have to think about.
Absolutely.
What is the next 6 months to a year look like in remaining competitive in this environment?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I think you're going to see a lot more AI consultants come into play. I would broadly put the future upcoming AI consultants in 3 categories, maybe 4. So first is people that know AI but don't know the industry, right? And so their trouble is going to be really in understanding whatever clients that they're servicing. They know the AI, but do they know the industry well and to custom create things that work well for them? Or are they going to try to fit their clients into their kind of box, right? The other end of the spectrum is people who understand the industry, but don't understand the AI, right? So they're going to be stuck just recommending a set of tools and products that won't necessarily fit together because they're disparate products. And they'll push themselves as AI experts in AI technologies and say, here's the 3, 4, 5 tools you should have. But they won't be able to necessarily chain those together in a meaningful fashion. The fourth, I'll touch on briefly, is people with neither AI expertise nor industry expertise, but know that this is a trend, and so they'll try to market themselves as AI experts. I don't know how well they'll do, but I'm sure there'll be some out there that make good money because that's the trend, right? And then what we're trying to position ourselves is that third category of where we have the industry expertise and we have the AI expertise. We built FinMate note-taking, and now we're building this agentic tool. And so the thing that will keep us in business is the fact that we understand both, and the fact that this is not really a hyper scalable business, right? So if you look back, software as a service, SaaS, has been the main driver for a lot of technology companies. But those are platform based and those can get copied easily, right? And so because that AI SaaS is such a red ocean, this consultative way of doing business is a lot slower. It's a lot less scalable. And there can be many more players in the marketplace because when we're developing a solution for one client, we're not able to develop a solution for another client. And so I think we're going to be moving into an environment where this high level of service, there will be a lot more players in this space to be able to provide this high level of service.
You bring up a valid point about how we're going to need to have very strong discernment when it comes to putting our dollars behind investors and founders and adapting and using specific softwares or technologies or agents and really doing the research behind who they are, why they're doing what they're doing. I would much rather work and use a tool like FinMate AI with my financial investments or advisory from someone like you who's worked in the industry and knows the ins and outs versus someone who vibe code with no financial background or have never been in the industry. And maybe he or she made a product that is more affordable or easily integrated, really using that discernment to look into what it is that you're going to spend time and invest in, whether that be your money or your energy or your portfolio. So really important point there. You talked about your next projects and the evolution of where you're headed to next. One of my favorite questions to ask guests is if you could wave a magic wand and create something with AI that doesn't exist yet. And this can even be how you're thinking of already expanding in the market and vertical you're in, or it can be a completely exciting passion project. I would love to know where your creative brain goes when it comes to the endless possibilities of AI.
Man, yeah, let me talk to the practical grounded reality level for now. Basically, the problem that any software stack has is in the integration up and down, right? And as anyone who's bought software will tell you, it never really works the way that it's sold, right? It never really talks to each other the way it should. And so I think in an ideal state, an AI that can actually connect all those disparate systems together in one seamless interface, I think that would be probably the ultimate in any kind of technology, right? The AI doesn't necessarily need to do everything itself, but as long as it can intelligibly talk or have different softwares talk to each other, I think that would be the ideal. It probably won't happen because many of these big software companies are gatekeeping access to their systems and paying for API, things like that. And so it won't really happen on a business realistic level, but I think just in a very grounded, dull-ish, not really sexy, but operationally efficient perspective, having that would be amazing.
I try to think of one thing to share. I like the idea of something, what is it called? It's not called Starlink, the chip where people are putting it in their brains.
Neuralink, yeah.
Neuralink. Okay, so first of all, I would never do that ever. But second of all, I am getting so tired of holding my phone and speaking to my LLMs all day. It's a bit of a stream of consciousness at this point. But how can I more easily integrate these tools and technology beyond attaching it to my body? Because I don't think I would do that.
Yeah, well, Neuralink is a step really far. I think the next natural step is on wearables, right? So there's been a couple companies out there that try to do like a lapel pin where you just attach something to your chest. Doesn't really work out because if you're wearing casual clothing, there's really nowhere to put it. I think maybe the next step would be in a wrist wearable, right? So a smartphone, right? So you're not holding a whole phone, or smartwatch, so you can just talk into it. I know Meta is doing some stuff with glasses, AR glasses, right? Augmented reality glasses.
Oh, yes.
The issue with that is, as someone who wears glasses, I can't really use that. And it's very bulky and heavy still, right? And so I would say the most probabilistic thing will be like a wrist wearable, or whether it's integrated into your smartwatch or it's like a separate band that you can talk into and that your phone as the main processing center. That might be the way to go. I have seen some stuff out there where it's not chip in brain, but it's chip in wrist. I don't know if you've seen that out of Asia, where you can do checkouts and things like that with either your palm or your wrist, and there's like a little thing that they embed. Again, I'm strange as it might be to hear, I'm a bit of a Luddite myself. I adopt technology relatively slowly in my personal life. Okay. And I think that comes from the fact that if you watch carefully these tech giants and see what they do with technology, they don't let their kids use it. So I am very cautious and careful of anything. I think back in college, I used to make fun of people who put tape over the webcams until I saw Zuckerberg taped his webcam. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is not some conspiracy theory. This is an actual thing. And so I started buying webcam covers after that. And so very much so, I would just say, like, watch what the big players are doing and do what they do, not what they say or market.
Yes. I also cover my cameras. I cover it on my phone along with my computer. And I have looked into wearables, but I am pretty conscious about EMFs. So I haven't gotten the Apple Watch and, I'm pretty mindful with EMF in my home.
Yeah.
But hopefully something comes soon. I've seen what you've talked about, the pins, the lapels, but I thought that was a little unethical. If someone doesn't know that they're speaking to you and you're recording without their consent, like that was a little gray and murky.
Yeah.
My next question for you, there are a lot of people entering the tech startup space. Would you like to share one key main takeaway? Because a lot of people are finding themselves in that amazing opportunity of becoming a first-time founder.
Sure. I don't know if I'm the best person to ask. We're going the slow, methodical route. I've chosen to go down the route of no venture capital, no private equity funding, right? And so I'm not really like a traditional startup guy. I've been a financial advisor for most of my career. In that industry, you build your book of business very slowly through over time, building relationships. Not really sure if I'm the best person to ask, frankly, for that. But if I were to give my 2 cents on the subject, I think going for broke, hyperscalability, that's amazing. That's awesome. But I think it's incumbent on each founder to determine if that's the life they want to lead. Is that the kind of business you want to run, where you jack up the price, go for a quick exit, right? Is that the kind of person you want to be? Great. But I think there's space in the industry now for people like me who like things a little bit slower, likes to move things a little slowly. And so if you're in that category and camp, I would still say give it a shot. I think, again, there's space in the industry for people that aren't trying to hyperscale, but just scale well, like in the olden times.
Yeah, bringing that happy medium. Not everything is meant to move at lightning speed or have an immediate exit with the first year or have goals that don't feel aligned with you. So such a key point there. So maybe I'll pull it back.
Sure.
If you want to share your closing remarks, and it doesn't have to be for the tech startup field. It could be people in the financial space, people just entering AI for the first time.
I think this is a lesson I've learned in the investment space, and I think that has carried out well throughout thinking through everything. A very good sell signal is when everyone is talking about something that you would not expect them to be talking about. I think that's when you know you hit peak hype. And it was the same thing for kind of the meme stocks, right? GameStop, right? It was the same thing for crypto. When you're on who never knows anything about technology, suddenly talking about Bitcoin might be a sell signal. And I think same thing for AI, right? Just be cognizant of who's talking about what and see what is just all hype and see what actually has real value inside of it. And I think that'll help buyers, users, sellers, creators steer away from meaningless hype and steer into something that can create some lasting value.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And last but not least, I'd love to hear if listeners want to reach out to you, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, you can reach me at daniel@finmate.ai. That's DANIEL at FINMATE.ai. Always happy to chat. There's a booking thing on our website as well if you want to book some time with our team. Yeah, always happy to chat with folks, even people not in the industry.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed just getting a little bit more of an insider look of how things are going in Silicon Valley with wearables and tech, and have a real conversation about what it means to have discernment and embrace this technology with balance and level-mindedness. So thank you. I appreciate you, Daniel.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on today.
That wraps up this special Power Series episode of How I AI. Huge thank you to today's guests for sharing how they're showing up, experimenting, and making AI their own. And a special shout out to you, the listeners, for reaching out and saying, I want to share my story too. That energy is exactly what makes this community so meaningful. If you want to be featured in the next Power Series and share how you're integrating AI into your work or your personal life, shoot me a message, email me directly. I'd love to hear from you. Let's keep amplifying real voices and real use cases. We're all shaping this space together. And until next time, stay curious, stay human, and keep exploring what's possible with AI. This episode was made possible in partnership with the Collective AI, a community designed to help entrepreneurs, creators, and professionals seamlessly integrate AI into their workflows. One of the biggest game changers in my own AI journey was joining this space. It's where I learned, connected, and truly enhanced my understanding of what's possible with AI. And the best part, they offer multiple membership levels to meet you where you are. Whether you want to DIY your AI learning or work with a personalized AI consultant for your business, the Collective has you covered. Learn more and sign up using my exclusive link in the show notes.